Welcome to I Love This Thing So Fricking Much, a podcast about passion. My name is Sophie Katz, and today I am joined by Alison Pollock, a former Disney cast member hailing from Michigan. Her hobbies include gaming, theme park hopping, belting theater tunes in the car, and trampolining. Welcome back to the show, Alison.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's so good to be back for season 2. Love the show so much.
So, here's how this works. Alison will have 3 minutes to talk about something that she loves. This can be a person, place, thing, concept, activity, anything she wants. Our only requirement is that she loves it wholeheartedly and wants to tell us why. Are you ready, Alison?
I'm ready.
Good. Got my timer here. Now, what do you love so fricking much?
Well, today I want to talk about Sense8, and that is a sci-fi drama that aired on Netflix from 2015 till about 2018. There are 2 seasons as well as a 2.5-hour special to wrap up the storylines because in pure Netflix fashion, they canceled the show. And then there was so much public outcry that they were able to get a special in order to wrap up the storylines. So this is a show created and directed by the Wachowskis of the Matrix films fame. It follows 8 individuals around the world who, in the simplest terms that I can give, become telepathically linked after a shared vision. This means that they can experience each other's senses, communicate telepathically in a sense. They are able to speak each other's languages and sometimes take over each other's bodies in a moment of intense emotion. Like if someone's in danger or if someone's being tortured, they all feel it at once and they can all react at the same way. So this is referred to as a term of, it's called visiting. So this phenomenon or different species of human, it's called Homo sensorum or Sense8. And from what I've found, it is kind of loosely based on a real actual theory in our world that hasn't been fully proven yet, but it's a concept that they wanted to bring to the show. Once they discover this connection that they have, they also learn about a corporation who are hunting them, and their main goal is for experimentation and also extermination. So the main characters of the show, there are 8 of them, hence the title Sense8, like the number 8. So it follows Sun, who is a street fighter in Korea, and Will, he is a cop in Chicago, Riley, a DJ in London, Lito, an action film star in Mexico City, Kala, a pharmacist in India, Kafius, a bus driver in Kenya, Nomi, a hacktivist in California, and Wolfgang, who's a locksmith slash mobster in Germany. So all of these people have such different life experiences in their corners of the world, and they have their own support systems that you meet, their families, their friends, and just, their own inner circles that kind of intermingle with these other connections they have around the world. Now, as these characters progress through their strange new existence, they kind of learn more about each other and bond over their shared hopes, fears, and they become a family in a sense. One of the cool things about it is they were all born on the same day at the exact same time, which is how they've become connected in this psychological sense. So without giving too much away, they actually find out there are even more clusters around the world in this same kind of situation, and they are able to communicate and collaborate with them later on. Just kind of wrap it up with basically the main plot of it. It's a story about all the trials and joys of life, including celebrating and embracing sexuality with people who may seem completely different from ourselves, but aren't really so different.
Go ahead and finish your thought.
So I guess it's just a story of humanity and some sci-fi thrown in.
That's awesome. Thank you for telling us about Sense8 today.
Yeah, it's honestly one of my favorite shows.
So how did you first get into this show?
I actually got into it in college. A friend of mine showed me the first episode while we were taking a study break. This was, back in 2015 when it first aired. And, it just became, I don't want to say an obsession, but we kind of made it a weekly thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the full season was there, we just said, hey, let's do a study break once a week and watch an episode so we can just kind of enjoy it. Because each episode's about like 45, 50 minutes. And they're cinematography wise and thematically gorgeous. They're shot on location in these different parts of the world. It's incredible. So it was really just like watching a movie every night, but it was like a TV episode that kind of ties all together. But it kind of evolved as, I moved on with my life. And, when new season premiered and the special premiered, I just kind of kept it going. And I actually rewatch it every single year, usually in January. So I actually just finished my rewatch of it.
So when you rewatch it, do you feel that you're getting something new out of it every time?
Yes, I do kind of notice little things, and I don't want to say wisdom, but some lines that these characters share I didn't really notice the first couple times I've watched. So every time I come across something new, which is really cool, I notice little details or, like some actor in the background making a funny face. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
cool to see every once in a while because you don't really pay attention to that when you're watching for the plot and you're watching the main characters. It's really incredible the new things that I pick up on and the new ideas that I kind of absorb from it that I never really thought about before. I was like, oh, I didn't really notice that the first time. That's kind of cool.
Talk a little more about that. What kind of ideas do you come away from the show with?
So there's a moment in the second season where they're kind of delving more into this concept of Homo sensorum or sensate and how it's kind of a different variation of Homo sapiens. And, it kind of gets down to psychological and scientific terms that I don't fully understand, but it came out with me realizing, oh, wow, this is actually something that I would have been fascinated by, when I was still in college and like actively studying things. And I actually found a book that they referenced in the show. I found it in real life. I can't think of the title for the life of me, but I have it on my bookshelf somewhere. But I actually found it. It's like a real book that they used as reference and as a theory for the show. So I'm like, wow, that's actually really cool. So now I can add this to my library and, maybe revisit this on my next rewatch.
Yeah, well, all the best sci-fi is grounded in reality, and that's why it makes sense to us.
Exactly, which is one of the coolest things, which is why I think the show has resonated so much. It also really makes me kind of wish that I had that kind of connection
Mm.
with people around the world because, not everybody has the opportunity to travel around the world and experience these different cultures and these different places everywhere. A friend of mine actually just went to Paris for the first time and she said it was just such a different environment, but she was fascinated by it and she learned new things about herself and things that she discovered food wise and just, activities wise. She actually picked up a new hobby. She actually decided she wants to start making hats, which is kind of cool. So just thinking about that and seeing how these characters connect and evolve and build this kind of family across the world is fascinating to me and makes you wish that you kind of had that connection. You have your friends here, you have your family, but just to have someone who is so similar to you around the world is really fascinating to me. We're all human beings and we all have some very similar experiences that we don't necessarily think about all the time.
You listed off the 8 main characters of the show, which is a lot. Like, even for a stream series, 8 main
Yes.
characters is a lot. Do any of these characters in particular stand out to you as your favorites?
I really enjoy Riley. She's the DJ in London. She's originally from Iceland, and her circumstances as to how she became a DJ are very strange. She ran away from Iceland after a very traumatic event in her young life, and she just chose to move to London to get away. But she never really had a background in music before that. So I guess she just kind of evolved and decided to reinvent herself when she went to London, which is kind of cool. Eventually she goes to Amsterdam as well. So she really kind of makes her way around. I really resonate with her a lot just because she's trying to reinvent herself, but also staying true to who she is. But one character in particular of that 8, Nomi, she's the hacktivist in California. She's a transgender woman. And just seeing her experiences of how she transitioned and, the support system she had and the support system she didn't. And also this whole experience of her becoming a sensate and being connected with all these new people. She's essentially going through that kind of cycle again because she's being treated as like a science experiment. She kind of has an episode where she ends up in the hospital and they're saying there's something wrong with your brain. So now she's being, discriminated against. They're calling her by her dead name, and there's just so much going on there where it's like she's kind of back to square one, where she's learning, again, like, oh God, this is what I just went through, through becoming who I truly am. Now I'm being treated even worse. And her support system with her girlfriend Amanita is incredible. And just watching how they get away from the government and help out their friends from around the world, it's just so good. I could go on, but just there's so many layers to all of these characters. They aren't just one thing. They are more than one thing. They have so many different aspects to them. Like Sun, she's a banker's daughter in Korea and Seoul, and she takes the fall for her brother for like some type of money laundering scandal. So she ends up going to jail, but she's also a street fighter. So just there's so many different layers to these characters. And like you said, with them being 8 characters, main characters in the show like this, it is immense. And the way they all interconnect with each other as well is so seamlessly done that, they each kind of have their own friendship and relationship with each of these people in what's called their cluster, this family of 8. I relate to Riley the most, but all of them are just so much fun to watch and so much fun to learn more about.
Is there anything that you don't like about Sense8? And if so, how do you handle that?
Yes, like everything that you love, there's always one little thing that you don't like. And I personally, again, this is just a personal preference. The show, it's not as, family friendly. There are a lot of sex scenes in it. And it's just something that I personally don't relate to. But if you're confident in your sexuality and everything, it's good to watch, because this show does celebrate sexuality and embracing that passion and that connection with your partner or with more people. But it's just something that I personally don't relate to. So I wish there was less of that. But also I understand why it is there. And I know that there are a lot of people who would watch it who could relate to it and say, I feel represented by this, or I really enjoy this. So it's not something that I wish they had cut at all. It's just not something that I enjoy watching of the show. I'm there for the sci-fi and the emotional connections between all these people, not necessarily the physical.
Yeah, it sounds like there's enough going on in this show, enough different characters and plot lines and subplot lines and events that there's something for everyone in it, really.
Exactly. Yes. Which is why whenever people are looking for a show to watch, I wouldn't say it's like an easy one to binge. It's definitely not, because, each episode's like 40 minutes and there's a couple different seasons, but it really does have something for everybody. It's got the sci-fi, it's got the comedy, it's got the drama, it's got the sexual tension and also just the sexual scenes. Side note, it has incredible music. The songs that they use in the show work really well. And obviously the cinematography is beautiful as well. So if you've, never been to India or never been to Kenya, you can see all these beautiful sets and these beautiful locations that they shot at, and you're like, wow, this is incredible. So in a way, it's just art. It's a masterpiece, and there's something for everybody, really.
Alison, thank you so much for telling us about something you love today.
I'm very glad I could be here. Thank you for inviting me.
And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in today. If you have something you love so freaking much you want to tell me all about it, consider this your invitation to join the show. I Love This Thing So Freaking Much is a production of Through the Window Media. This episode was directed and edited by Sophie A. Katz. You can find us at Through the Window on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or Tumblr. That is THROU the Window at all the social media sites. Be good to yourself, be kind to each other, and you'll hear from us again soon.